The 5 Vorthak bioships moved through space like hunting sharks. Their living hulls pulsed with soft light as they surrounded the human vessel. From their perspective, this was routine. They had done it 47 times before on 47 different worlds. Admiral Thexval watched his prey with satisfaction. The human ship hung in space like a wounded animal. Smoke still leaked from several hull breaches. Its crude metal surface was scarred and blackened from whatever disaster had brought it here. "Maintain formation," he ordered his fleet. "I want them to see how outmatched they are." Commander Velthar studied the tactical display. "Sir, their weapon systems appear to be active. Should we be concerned?" Thexval made a sound like air escaping from a balloon. It was Vorthak laughter. "Look at those weapons, Commander. Metal tubes and crude projectile systems. We have conquered species with technology far beyond this." The Vorthak had good reason for confidence. Their bioships were grown from living tissue that could heal damage automatically. Their weapons were organic cannons that fired concentrated energy. Most importantly, they had never lost a battle. Not once in 200 years of expansion. "Begin the harvesting procedure," Thexval commanded. From the bottom of each Vorthak ship, long tendrils began to emerge. These were not simple ropes or cables. They were living extensions of the bioships themselves, filled with nerves and sensing organs. The tendrils could cut through metal like acid or wrap around a ship's hull like gentle hands. Aboard the UNS Defiance, alarms began screaming. "Captain!" Hansol Yoon called out from his tactical station. "The alien ships are deploying some kind of organic appendages. They're heading straight for us." Captain Park studied the main screen. The sight of those writhing tendrils made his skin crawl. They looked like the arms of some giant sea monster reaching up from the deep ocean. But Park had fought monsters before. "Distance to target?" he asked. "The tendrils will reach us in 30 seconds, Hansol replied. Park turned to his communications. "Officer. Jiwoo, send one more message. Tell them this is their final warning." Jiwoo's fingers flew over her controls. The message went out across all frequencies. "Unknown vessels, you are committing an act of war against the United Nations Space Command. Withdraw your weapons immediately, or we will defend ourselves." The response came back quickly. The alien voice sounded amused, like an adult talking to a stubborn child. "Primitive humans, you do not understand your situation. We are the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered 47 star systems. Your resistance is meaningless. Submit now and your deaths will be quick." Park felt something cold settle in his chest. These aliens spoke of death like it meant nothing. They had done this before many times. To them, humans were just another species to be collected and studied. "Sir," Weapons Officer Minho Jang reported, "the organic tendrils are 20 seconds away. Request permission to fire." Park looked around his bridge. Every face showed the same expression, determination mixed with fear. These were good people. They had families back on Earth, children who were waiting for their parents to come home. Park would not let these aliens turn his crew into specimens. "Negative," Park said. "Not yet." "Sir?" Minho asked, confusion clear in his voice. "I want them to get closer," Park explained. "I want them to think they've won." First Officer Dongwoo Lee understood immediately. He had served with Park for 8 years. He knew his captain's tactical mind. "You want them overconfident?" "Exactly," Park said. "These aliens have conquered 47 worlds. They think they know how battles work. Time to show them something new." The Vorthak tendrils reached the human ship's hull. They began to attach themselves to the metal surface with soft sucking sounds. Biomechanical sensors started working, their way through the outer armor, looking for electrical systems to disable. On the Vorthak flagship, technicians watched their displays with satisfaction. "Contact established," one reported. "Beginning system infiltration now." "How long until we have full control?" Admiral Thexval asked. "Estimated 12 minutes until their weapons are disabled. 18 minutes for complete system shutdown." Thexval nodded. This was exactly how it always went. First, they would disable the primitive ship's weapons. Then they would flood it with sleeping gas and collect the crew for study. The High Command would be pleased with another successful conquest. But something was wrong, sir, the technician said, worry creeping into his voice. I'm not reading the expected system architecture. This ship's technology is different. Different how? Thexval demanded. It's all mechanical, sir. No biocomponents at all. No organic integration. Just metal and electricity and crude chemistry. Our infiltration tendrils don't know how to interface with it. Thexval felt his first moment of doubt. In all their conquests, every species had used some form of biotechnology. Living components that could be influenced, controlled, or disabled. But these humans had built everything from dead metal. Adapt, he ordered. Find a way to shut down their systems. Meanwhile, Captain Park watched the alien tendrils trying to penetrate his ship's hull. He could see them searching for something, probing different sections like a doctor looking for a vein. They're confused, observed Chief Science Officer Boram Song. She had been studying the alien technology through the ship's sensors. Their tendrils seem designed to interface with biological systems. Our purely mechanical technology is alien to them. Park smiled grimly. Good. How much longer until they figure it out? Hard to say, sir. Maybe 20 minutes. Maybe an hour. We don't have that long, Park said. He turned to his weapons officer. Minho, status on the main gun? Railgun is charged and ready, Captain. Target locked on the lead vessel. Park took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define first contact between humanity and the Vorthak Empire. He could surrender and hope for mercy. He could try to negotiate and hope for understanding. Or he could show these aliens that humans were not prey animals to be collected and studied. All stations, prepare for combat, he announced. Engineering, I need maximum power to weapons. In the engine room, Sora Kim heard the announcement and cursed under her breath. She was still trying to repair the quantum fold drive, but she could give the captain what he needed. Redirecting all non-essential power to weapon systems, she called over the communicator. You've got everything I can give you, Captain. Throughout the ship, lights dimmed as power flowed to the railgun system. The massive weapon began to charge with a sound like thunder rolling across the sky. In the weapon bay, magnetic coils aligned themselves with perfect precision. On the Vorthak ship, sensor operators detected the power buildup. Sir, one called out urgently, the human vessel is charging some kind of weapon. Energy levels are significant. Admiral Thexval looked at his displays. The numbers climbing on his screens were impressive but not threatening. The human ship was maybe 1/3 the size of his flagship. What kind of damage could it possibly do? Maintain position, he ordered. Continue the harvesting process. Captain Park stood up from his chair. This was the moment every military officer trained for but hoped would never come. The decision to fire the first shot in a war between species. Jiwoo, send one final message, he said. The communications officer looked up at him. Sir? Tell them, this is your last chance. Withdraw now or learn why humans have survived 500 years of constant warfare. The message traveled across space to the Vorthak fleet. Admiral Thexval read the translation and felt something like respect for these stubborn creatures. They truly believed they could fight the mighty Vorthak Empire. Admirable courage, he said to his officers, but courage without power is just noise. He was about to learn the difference between human courage and human power. Back on the Defiance, Captain Park looked at his crew one more time. They were ready. 500 years of human military evolution had led to this moment. Minho, he said quietly. Fire across their bow. Single shot. Show them what we're capable of. The weapons officer's hand hovered over the firing control. Across their bow, sir? Not direct hit? Not yet, Park said. Give them one chance to be smart about this. Minho nodded and adjusted his targeting. The railgun rotated slightly, aiming for a point just ahead of the lead Vorthak ship. Firing, he announced. The UNS Defiance bucked like a wild horse as the railgun discharged. 200 meters of magnetic acceleration sent a tungsten projectile screaming through space at 15% of light speed. The flash of discharge lit up the surrounding area like a brief new star. The projectile missed the Vorthak flagship by exactly 3 kilometers, just as intended. but its passage through space created a light show that could be seen from several star systems away. For the first time in their conquest of 47 worlds, the Vorthak fleet went completely silent. On his flagship, Admiral Thexval stared at his sensors in disbelief. The human projectile had passed close enough to his ship that he could feel the gravitational wake it created. If it had been aimed directly at his vessel, nothing would have remained but scattered atoms. "Sir," his science officer whispered, "the energy release from that weapon, it would completely destroy any of our ships with a direct hit." Thexval said nothing. For the first time in his long military career, he was beginning to understand that he might have made a terrible mistake. The giant gas planet spun slowly in the cold darkness of space. Its red and orange clouds swirled like paint mixed in water. Around it, chunks of ice and rock floated in lazy circles. This was the edge of the Kepler 442 system, far from any suns. Warmth Admiral Thexval stood on the bridge of his flagship. His tall, thin body cast a shadow across the biometal floor. His four eyes scanned the displays that grew from the living walls of his ship. The Vorthak had long ago learned to grow their ships instead of building them. It was more efficient, more elegant. "Sir," called Commander Velthar from his station, "we have found something strange." Thexval moved closer. His feet made soft clicking sounds on the organic deck. "Show me." The wall display changed. It showed a metal object floating near the gas giant. The thing was ugly, all sharp angles and rough surfaces. Smoke leaked from several holes in its side. It looked like someone had hammered metal plates together without any plan. "What is this thing?" Thexval asked. Velthar's tentacles danced over his controls. Numbers and readings appeared on the display. "It appears to be some kind of vessel, sir, very primitive. The metal is crude iron and steel, chemical rockets for movement, basic electrical systems." Other officers gathered around. They looked at the strange ship with curiosity. In all their travels across 47 star systems, they had seen many alien vessels. Most were beautiful works of art. This thing looked like space junk. "Could it be debris?" asked Science Officer Morgeth. "Perhaps from a species that destroyed itself?" Thexval studied the readings. The object was about 300 meters long and 80 meters wide. It had the basic shape of a ship, with what looked like weapons mounted on its hull. But everything about it screamed primitive technology. "No," he said finally. "This is a working vessel. Look at the power signatures. Something is alive in there." Far away inside the human ship UNS Defiance, alarms were ringing. Captain Taman Park ran down a corridor filled with smoke. Emergency lights flashed red along the walls. The deck shook under his feet as another system failed somewhere deep in the ship. "Report," he shouted as he reached the bridge. First Officer Dongwu Li looked up from his station. His face was covered in sweat and oil. "The quantum fold drive is completely dead, sir. We're stuck in normal space. Chief Engineer Sora Kim says it will take at least 6 hours to get us moving again." Park dropped into his captain's chair. The leather was cracked and worn from years of use. Everything on human ships showed wear. Nothing lasted forever, so they built things to be fixed instead of perfect. "What about the hull breach in Section 7? Park asked. "Sealed," reported Damage Control Officer Yeon-Soo Han. "But we lost 2 crew members. The spatial storm hit us harder than we thought." Park closed his eyes for a moment. 2 good people gone. He had sent them into that section knowing it was dangerous. That was the weight every captain carried, the lives of his crew. "Sir," called Tactical Officer Han Sol-yoon. His voice was tight with worry. "I'm reading 5 unknown contacts approaching our position." Park's eyes snapped open. On screen, the main display flickered to life. 5 shapes moved through space toward them. They were like nothing Park had ever seen. Each ship looked alive, smooth curves and flowing lines. They moved like fish swimming through water instead of metal objects pushing through vacuum. "Range?" Park asked. 2 million kilometers in closing," Han Sol replied. "They're big, sir. Each one is at least 900 meters long." Park felt ice in his stomach. His ship was damaged and outnumbered 5-1. But he had been in bad spots before. During the Centauri border wars, he had learned that being outgunned was not the same as being beaten. Communications, try to raise them, he ordered. Communications officer Jiwoo Choi worked at her station. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Sir, standard first contact protocols. Meanwhile, aboard the Vorthak flagship, the aliens watched the primitive vessel with growing interest. They are trying to communicate, reported the communications specialist. Very basic radio waves like children shouting across a playground. Admiral Thexivol felt amused. In all their conquests, they had never found a species this backward that could still travel between stars. It was like finding a wooden boat sailing next to their advanced bioships. What do they want, he asked. Standard greeting protocols, sir. They seem to think we are equals. The bridge crew made sounds that might have been laughter. Equals? These primitive beings with their crude metal ship thought they were equals to the mighty Vorthak Empire? Respond, Thexvol ordered. Tell them they have been found by the Vorthak Empire. They will surrender their vessel for inspection. Their species will be studied. Resistance is not acceptable. Back on the Defiance, Jiwoo frowned as the alien message came through. She quickly translated the meaning and turned to Captain Park. Sir, they're demanding we surrender. They want to inspect our ship and study our people. Park felt anger rise in his chest. Study his people, like animals in a zoo. He had sworn an oath to protect Earth and humanity. No alien was going to treat his crew like specimens. Send a response, he said, his voice calm and cold. This is Captain Taemin Park of the United Nations Space Command. You are in violation of interstellar law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The message traveled across space at light speed. On the Vorthak flagship, the translation caused more amusement. Consequences? Velthar said. What consequences? Could they possibly threaten us with? Thexvol studied the human ship again. It was damaged and alone. Its weapons looked pitiful compared to Vorthak biocannons. The metal hull would crack like an egg under their organic disruptors. These humans seem to have courage, he admitted. Foolish courage, but courage nonetheless. It will make them interesting subjects for study. He turned to his weapons officer. Prepare the harvesting tendrils. We will take their ship intact. The High Command will want to see this primitive technology. Yes, sir, the officer replied. Chief Engineer Sora Kim crawled through a maintenance shaft inside the Defiance. Sparks flew from damaged circuits around her. She had been working for 3 hours straight, trying to bring the quantum fold drive back online. Sora, how much longer? Park's voice crackled through her communicator. At least 4 more hours, Captain, she replied, wiping sweat from her face. The spatial storm fried half our primary systems. I'm having to rebuild the quantum matrix from scratch. She knew Park was worried about the alien ships. Everyone on the crew knew they were in danger. But Sora had worked miracles before. During the Mars Rebellion, she had kept 3 destroyers, running with nothing but spare parts and determination. Do what you can, Park said. We might not have 4 hours. Sora understood. She pulled out her toolkit and started working faster. Her small hands moved quickly over the complex machinery. Human technology might look primitive to aliens, but it had one advantage. It could be fixed by people who understood how things worked. On the bridge, Park watched the alien ships get closer. They moved in perfect formation like they had done this many times before. His ship was hurt and outnumbered, but Park had something the aliens did not understand. He had 500 years of human military history in his memory. Every battle Earth had ever fought, every lesson learned in blood and steel. Humans had been fighting each other since they lived in caves. They knew war in ways these aliens could not imagine. Weapons status? He asked. Weapons Officer Min Ho Jiang checked his displays. Main railgun is operational. Secondary batteries are online. Missile tubes are loaded and ready. Good, Park said. He looked at the alien ships again. They were beautiful in their own way, like living art. But Park had learned long ago that beautiful things could be just as deadly as ugly ones. All hands, this is the captain, he announced over the ship's communication system. We have encountered alien vessels with hostile intent. Prepare for combat operations. This is not a drill. Throughout the ship, 500 crew members moved to battle stations. They sealed blast doors, powered up weapons, and prepared for war. They were scared, but they were ready. That was what made them human. The two fleets moved closer through the cold darkness of space, neither understanding what they were about to learn about each other. The silence that followed the railgun shot was absolute. In the cold vacuum of space there was no sound, but somehow every being on both sides felt the weight of that moment. The tungsten projectile had passed between the Vorthak ships like a knife cutting through silk, leaving a trail of ionized particles that glowed like stardust. Admiral Thexval stood frozen on his bridge. His 4 eyes stared at the sensor readings, but his mind refused to accept what they showed. The primitive human vessel had just fired a weapon with more destructive power than anything in the Vorthak arsenal. "Sir," Science Officer Morgeth whispered, his voice shaking. The projectile's velocity was 47,000 kilometers per second, the kinetic energy release. He paused, checking his calculations again. "Sir, it would vaporize our entire flagship." Around the bridge, other Vorthak officers stood silent. They had conquered 47 star systems. They had faced energy weapons, plasma cannons, and biodisruptors. But they had never seen anything like this. Pure kinetic force moving at a significant fraction of light speed. "Impossible," Commander Velthar said. "How can a primitive species create such power?" Thexval did not answer. He was remembering something from his military academy days, a lecture about ancient weapons. The instructor had spoken of extinct species that used kinetic projectiles instead of energy weapons. Most civilizations abandoned such crude methods once they developed better technology, but what if crude did not mean weak? On the human ship, Captain Park watched his sensors carefully. The alien vessels had stopped their approach. Their organic tendrils hung motionless in space, no longer reaching for his ship. "Target response?" he asked his tactical officer. Han Sol-Yoon studied his displays. "All 5 ships have stopped advancing, sir. No immediate response to our warning. Shot." "They're thinking," observed First Officer Dongwoo Lee. "Good. Smart enemies are better than stupid ones." Park nodded. He understood the psychology of warfare. Stupid enemies were unpredictable and dangerous. Smart enemies could be reasoned with, negotiated with, or at least understood. The fact that these aliens had stopped advancing meant they were capable of learning. "Jiwoo, are they sending any communications?" Park asked. Communications Officer Jiwoo Choi shook her head. "Nothing, sir. Complete radio silence." Park walked to the main viewing screen. The 5 alien ships hung in space like sleeping giants. Beautiful, deadly, and now uncertain. He had bought his crew some time, but what would happen next was still unknown. "Captain," called Chief Science Officer Bo Ramsong from her station. "I'm reading massive power fluctuations from the alien vessels. They're running deep scans on us." "What kind of scans?" Park asked. "Everything they can manage. Structural analysis, energy signature mapping, weapons assessment. They're trying to understand what they're dealing with." Park almost smiled. These aliens were smart. They had made a mistake in approaching his ship with such confidence, but they were learning quickly. That made them dangerous, but it also made them reasonable. Meanwhile, aboard the Vorthak flagship, teams of scientists worked frantically to understand the human weapon. "Report," Admiral Thexval demanded. Science Officer Morgeth's tentacles danced over his bio-interface. "The human ship uses magnetic acceleration to launch dense metal projectiles. No explosives, no energy discharge, just pure kinetic impact." "That's impossible," Velthar protested. "No species uses such primitive methods." "This one does," Morgeth replied grimly. "And they've perfected it. Sir, their targeting system achieved a 3-kilometer accuracy at 2 million kilometers range, with a projectile moving at relativistic speeds. That requires computational power and engineering precision beyond most species we've encountered." Thexval felt something cold in his stomach. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we may have underestimated these humans, sir. Their technology looks primitive because it is primitive, but that doesn't make it weak. They've taken basic principles and pushed them to their absolute limits. On the human ship, Weapons Officer Minho Jiang was checking his systems. The railgun had performed perfectly, but firing it at full power put tremendous stress on the ship's structure. Microfractures appeared in the hull around the weapon mounting. Electrical systems had overloaded from the magnetic pulse. "Damage report," Captain Park asked. "Minor hull stress around the main gun," Minho replied. "Nothing critical, but we can't keep firing at full power without risking structural damage." Park nodded. Human ships were built tough, but they had limits. Unlike the alien bioships that seemed to repair themselves, human vessels required careful maintenance and smart tactics. "How many more shots can we fire?" Park asked. "At full power. Maybe 5 before we risk hull breach. At reduced power, we could fire all day." "Understood," Park said. 5 shots. That meant he needed to make each one count if this turned into a real battle. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Sora Kim was dealing with her own problems. The railgun discharge had disrupted power flow throughout the ship. Several circuits had burned out, and the quantum full drive repair was now set back by another hour. "Captain," she called over the communicator, "that big gun of ours just fried. Half my repair work. We're looking at 7 hours before I can get the FTL drive online." 7 hours. Park felt the weight of that number. 7 hours for the aliens to call for reinforcements. 7 hours for more alien ships to arrive. 7 hours for this situation to spiral completely out of control. "Do your best, Sora," he replied. "We'll keep them busy up here." Navigator Yan Su-Han looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm detecting movement from the alien fleet. The lead ship is approaching again." Park turned to the main screen. The largest alien vessel was indeed moving forward, but slowly this time. Carefully. Like a predator that had just learned its prey had claws. "Range?" Park asked. 1.8 million kilometers and closing slowly, Hansel reported. "The other 4 ships are maintaining position." Park studied the alien formation. They were being smart about this. Only 1 ship approaching while the others provided cover. If the humans fired on the lead vessel, the other 4 could respond immediately. "Sir," Communications Officer Ji-Woo said urgently, "incoming transmission from the alien fleet." "Put it through," Park ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was different from before, still alien but more careful, more respectful. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Thexvol of the Vorthak Empire. Your weapon is impressive. We wish to discuss terms." Park felt a moment of hope, but he was too experienced to trust it completely. "What kind of terms, Admiral?" "A peaceful resolution to this encounter. Perhaps we judged your species too quickly." First Officer Dongwoo Lee leaned close to Park's chair. "Could be a trick, sir. Keep them talking while they maneuver for advantage." Park nodded. Lee was right to be suspicious. But this was the first sign that these aliens might be reasonable. "Admiral Thexvol," Park replied, "I'm willing to discuss terms, but your ships will maintain current distance. Any closer and we will consider it a hostile act." There was a pause before the alien admiral replied, "Agreed, but I must ask, how many weapons like that do you possess?" Park smiled grimly. The alien was fishing for information, trying to assess the human threat level. Park decided to be honest, but incomplete. "Enough," he said simply. Another pause. Then Thexvol spoke again. "I see. Human Captain, may I ask your name?" "Captain Taemin Park, United Nations Space Command." "Captain Park, in my experience with 47 conquered worlds, I have never encountered weapons like yours. Most species use energy-based systems, bioweapons, plasma dischargers. Why do humans still use kinetic projectiles?" Park thought about how to answer. The truth was complicated. Humans used kinetic weapons because they worked, simple, reliable, and devastatingly effective. But there was a deeper reason. "Because we've been at war for 5,000 years, Park said finally. "We've learned that the simplest weapons are often the most effective." Silence from the alien fleet. Park could imagine them trying to understand what he meant. A species at war for 5,000 years? Most civilizations achieved peace long before they reached the stars. On the Vorthak flagship, Admiral Thexvol was indeed struggling to understand. Science officer, is it possible for a species to maintain warfare for so long? Morgoth's tentacles worked frantically over his bio-interface, accessing historical databases. Sir, most species achieve global peace within 2,000 years of developing agriculture. Continued warfare beyond that point usually results in extinction. But not humans, Thexvol said thoughtfully. Apparently not, sir. Thexvol studied the human vessel again. It looked crude and battle-scarred because it was battle-scarred. These humans had been fighting someone, maybe each other, for millennia. Every weapon system, every defensive measure, every tactical decision had been tested in actual combat. Captain Park, he called over the communication channel. You said you've been at war for 5,000 years. Against whom? The answer came back immediately, and it chilled Thexvol to his core. Against anyone who threatens what we protect. That simple sentence contained a universe of meaning. These humans were not conquerors like the Vorthak. They were defenders, and they had spent 5,000 years learning how to defend themselves against anything. The meeting point between the two fleets was an empty patch of space, marked only by the distant light of stars. Two small shuttles drifted toward each other, one a sleek Vorthak biocraft that pulsed with organic light, the other a utilitarian, human vessel that looked like a flying toolbox with engines. Captain Taemin Park sat in his shuttle, accompanied by First Officer Dongwoo Lee and Chief Science Officer Boram Song. Through the viewport, he could see the alien craft approaching. It moved like a living thing, flowing through space rather than simply traveling through it. Captain, Boram said, studying her instruments, I'm reading some fascinating energy signatures from their shuttle. It's definitely biological technology, but more sophisticated than anything we've theorized. Weapons? Park asked. None that I can detect. But with biotech, the entire vessel could potentially be a weapon. Park nodded. He had decided to trust Admiral Thexvol's word about peaceful intentions, but he remained ready for treachery. In his experience, the best way to prepare for peace was to be ready for war. In the Vorthak shuttle, Admiral Thexvol was having his own concerns. He had brought Science Officer Morgoth and Commander Velthar, but he was beginning to wonder if this meeting was wise. Everything about these humans defied Vorthak understanding of how intelligent species should behave. Admiral, Morgoth said, I'm detecting some unusual technology in the human shuttle. Their life support systems are completely mechanical, no biological components at all. Is that significant? Thexvol asked. It means they're truly alien to us, sir. Every species we've encountered uses some form of biotechnology. But humans have developed along a completely different path. They're as foreign to us as we are to them. The two shuttles came to rest 50 meters apart. Through their viewports, the two groups studied each other with intense curiosity. This was first contact in its purest form, two completely different approaches to intelligence meeting in the void between stars. Atmospheric compatibility? Park asked Boram. Both shuttles are maintaining artificial atmospheres, sir. I'm reading. Nitrogen-oxygen mix from our side and something more complex from theirs. We'll need environment suits for direct contact. Park had expected this. Few species could share the same breathing environment. He activated his shuttle's external communication system. Admiral Thexvol, this is Captain Park. Our atmospheres are not compatible. Do you wish to meet via video link or in person with environmental protection? The alien response came back immediately. Captain Park, I would prefer to meet face-to-face. Visual communication cannot convey the full truth of first contact between our species. 20 minutes later, Captain Park stepped out of his shuttle's airlock wearing a standard EVA suit. The suit was bulky and practical, designed for function rather than appearance. Across from him, Admiral Thexvol emerged from his bio-shuttle wearing what looked like a second skin of living tissue that adapted to the vacuum of space. The two beings floated in empty space, tethered to their shuttles by safety lines. For a long moment they simply looked at each other. Admiral Thexvol was tall and thin, with 4 eyes arranged around an elongated head. His biosuit pulsed with soft colors that seemed to reflect his emotional state. He moved with fluid grace like a creature born in zero gravity. Captain Park was shorter and more solidly built, his EVA suit covering a frame designed for a world with gravity. He moved with careful precision, every motion planned and efficient. "Captain Park," Thexval said, his voice transmitted through radio. "You are not what I expected." "What did you expect, Admiral?" Park replied. "Something more primitive, crude. Your technology looks simple compared to ours, so I assumed your people would be equally simple. I was wrong." Park nodded inside his helmet. "It's easy to mistake simple for primitive. My species learned long ago that the best solutions are often the most basic ones." The two leaders began to circle each other slowly, like dancers in a zero-gravity ballet. Around them, the stars provided a backdrop of infinite beauty and infinite distance. "Admiral," Park said, "may I ask about your conquests? 47 star systems is an impressive achievement." Thexval's biosuit shifted to darker colors. "Achievement. Yes, that's how we saw it. The expansion of Vorthak civilization to primitive worlds. The bringing of order to chaos." "And now?" Park asked. "Now I'm not certain what we were actually doing," Thexval admitted. "Your species has made me question many assumptions." They drifted closer to Park's shuttle, where through the viewport they could see First Officer Lee monitoring their conversation. The sight seemed to intrigue the alien admiral. "That officer watching us, he shows great concern for your safety. Is this normal among your people?" "Yes," Park said simply. "We protect each other. It's what we do. Even in war, especially in war." Thexval processed this. In Vorthak society, individual survival was secondary to species advancement. The idea of risking the mission to protect a single person was alien to him. "Captain, may I see your vessel?" Thexval asked. "I'm curious about how your people live and work." It was an unusual request, but Park sensed genuine curiosity rather than intelligence gathering. "Very well, but I'll want to see one of your ships as well." 30 minutes later, Admiral Thexval floated through the corridors of the UNS Defiance accompanied by Captain Park and a security detail. What he saw challenged everything he thought he knew about intelligent species. The human ship was a maze of mechanical systems, electrical conduits, and cramped spaces designed for efficiency rather than comfort. But it was also filled with something the Vorthak had never encountered in their conquests: evidence of individual personalities. In the crew quarters, Thexval saw personal photographs, handwritten letters, small mementos from home. In the common areas, he observed crew members talking, laughing, showing concern for each other's well-being. "Your people seem to care deeply for one another," he observed. "They're not just my crew," Park replied. "They're my family. Each one of them has people waiting at home, parents, children, friends who love them. My job is to make sure they all go home safely." This concept was difficult for Thexval to understand. Vorthak society was collective. Individuals existed to serve the species, but humans seemed to fight for individual lives, even at the cost of tactical efficiency. They reached the ship's medical bay, where Chief Medical Officer Heejin Kang was treating crew members injured during the spatial storm that had damaged the ship. When she saw the alien visitor, she looked up with professional curiosity. "Admiral," she said through her translator, "are you injured? I know our biologies are different, but I'd be happy to examine you if you're experiencing any discomfort from our environment." Thexval was stunned. This human medical officer was offering to treat an enemy commander in the middle of a military standoff. It was unprecedented in his experience. "She would really try to heal me?" he asked Park. "Of course," Park replied. "She's a doctor. It's her job to heal anyone who needs it." They continued through the ship, visiting the engine room, where Sora Kim explained her repair work with obvious pride in her craft. They saw the weapons bay where Minho Jiang maintained the railgun, with the careful attention of someone who understood that his skill protected his friends. Finally, they reached the bridge, where the senior officers were monitoring both fleets. When Admiral Thexval entered, every human turned to look at him, but not with hostility, with curiosity and professional respect. "Admiral," First Officer Lee said, "welcome aboard. I hope you're finding your visit educational." "More than you know," Thexval replied. They stood before the main viewing screen, which showed both fleets maintaining their positions. The Vorthak bioships looked elegant and deadly, while the approaching human reinforcements appeared crude but purposeful. "Captain Park," Thexval said, "I must ask you a difficult question. If we had attacked your ship directly without warning, what would you have done?" Park considered his answer carefully. "We would have fought with everything we had. We would have made you pay a terrible price for every meter of our ship. And if we were about to lose, we would have made sure our sacrifice counted for something. You would have died for your crew?" Without hesitation, Thexval absorbed this. He had studied the tactical reports from 47 conquered worlds. Most species surrendered when faced with overwhelming odds. Some fought desperately for survival, but none had shown the disciplined ferocity that humans seem to possess. "And if we had demanded the surrender of your entire species?" Park's answer was immediate and cold. "Then you would have learned why we've survived 5,000 years of warfare. Every human ship, every human world, every human settlement would have fought you. We don't surrender our people to anyone." The truth hit Thexval like a physical blow. The Vorthak Empire had built its power by conquering species that could be intimidated or overwhelmed. But humans couldn't be intimidated, and overwhelming them would cost more than the conquest was worth. "Admiral," he said to his officers through his biosuit communication, "I need to speak with the High Command immediately." An hour later, Captain Park returned Admiral Thexval to his shuttle. As the alien leader prepared to depart, he turned to face the human captain one last time. "Captain Park, this encounter has been educational. My people will need to reconsider many things." The news of approaching human reinforcements spread through the Vorthak fleet like wildfire. On each bioship, officers and crew members watched their sensors with growing alarm. 12 human vessels were heading toward their position, and each one carried weapons like the crippled ship they faced, the Vorthak fleet was in serious trouble. Admiral Thexval stood motionless on his bridge. In 2 centuries of military service, he had never faced a situation like this. His fleet of 5 ships had been considered unstoppable. They had conquered entire star systems with fewer vessels. But now, for the first time, he was considering retreat. "Time until the human reinforcements arrive?" he asked. "Approximately 4 hours, sir," reported his navigation officer. 4 hours. Not enough time to complete their harvest of the human ship, but enough time to escape if they left immediately. Thexval studied the tactical display, weighing his options. "Admiral," called Science Officer Morgeth, "I've completed my analysis of the human weapon system. The results are disturbing." "Show me," Thexval ordered. The display changed to show a technical readout of the human railgun. Morgeth's tentacles pointed to various components as he explained. The weapon itself is simple: magnetic coils that accelerate a dense projectile. But the engineering required to make it work is extraordinary. The power systems, the targeting computers, the structural supports, everything is designed to maximum efficiency. "What does that mean?" Commander Velthar asked. "It means these humans have spent a very long time perfecting the art of killing," Morgeth replied grimly. "Every component of their weapon has been tested in real combat and improved. This isn't theoretical engineering. This is weapons development through actual warfare." Thexval absorbed this information. Most species develop their military technology through computer simulations and theoretical models. The Vorthak bioships had been grown in laboratories and tested against practice targets. But the humans had built their weapons in the fires of real war. "Sir," another officer called out, "the human captain is requesting another communication." "Put him through," Thexval ordered. Captain Park's voice came through the ship's communication system, calm and professional. "Admiral Thexval, my sensors show that you're aware of our reinforcements. I'm hoping we can resolve this situation before they arrive." Thexval felt respect for the human captain growing. Park was offering him a way out. a chance to withdraw, with dignity before the situation became hopeless. What do you propose, Captain Park? Simple. Your ships withdraw to a safe distance. We complete our repairs and leave this system. No one has to die today. It was a reasonable offer. Too reasonable. Thexvol's military instincts told him there was something he was missing. Captain, may I ask why you're being so generous? You clearly have the advantage. The human's response came back immediately. Because war should always be the last option, Admiral. I've seen enough death to know that victory without honor is just another kind of defeat. Those words hit Thexval like a physical blow. In all the Vorthak conquests, they had never encountered an enemy who spoke of honor in the face of certain victory. Most species either surrendered immediately or fought to the death. But these humans were offering mercy to their enemies. On the human ship, Captain Park was dealing with his own crisis. Chief Science Officer Bo Ram Song had been monitoring the alien communications, and what she had discovered was troubling. Captain, she said, approaching his command chair, I've been analyzing the alien fleet's communication patterns. I think I understand their psychology now. Explain, Park said. They're not explorers or traders, sir. They're conquerors, pure and simple. Their entire fleet structure, their communication protocols, their approach patterns, everything points to a species that has never encountered meaningful resistance. Park felt a chill run down his spine. You're saying they've never lost a battle? More than that, sir. I don't think they've ever had to fight a real battle. Look at their ship designs, all flowing curves and aesthetic beauty. These aren't warships built for combat. They're parade vessels designed to intimidate primitives. First Officer Dongwu Li joined the conversation. That explains their initial arrogance. They expected us to surrender immediately. And now they don't know how to handle actual resistance, Park concluded. He studied the alien ships on his main screen. Borum was right. They were beautiful vessels, but they looked more like works of art than weapons of war. Sir, Tactical Officer Han Sol-yoon called out, I'm detecting some interesting energy patterns from the alien ships. It looks like they're healing themselves. Park turned to look at Han Sol's displays. The alien vessels showed fluctuating energy signatures around areas that had been damaged by micrometeorites during their journey. As they watched, the damage disappeared. Self-repairing bioships, Boram observed. Impressive technology, but it has a weakness. What kind of weakness? Park asked. Biological systems can adapt to gradual damage, but they can't handle massive trauma. Our railgun would hit them faster than their repair systems could respond. They'd be destroyed before they could begin to heal. Park nodded thoughtfully. These aliens had developed technology that made them nearly invulnerable to the energy weapons used by most species. But they had never encountered kinetic weapons powerful enough to overwhelm their biological defenses. Meanwhile, on the Vorthak flagship, Admiral Thexvol was learning his own disturbing truths about humanity. Sir, called his intelligence officer, I've completed analysis of the human captain's speech patterns and word choices. The psychological profile is unusual. How so? This individual has extensive combat experience, but he shows clear signs of what humans might call war weariness. He's tired of fighting, sir, but not because he's weak, because he's seen too much combat. Thexval frowned. Explain. Most young warriors are eager to prove themselves in battle. Older warriors become cautious to preserve their lives. But this human captain shows a third pattern, someone who fights effectively but takes no joy in it. He's offering us mercy not from weakness but from strength. The Admiral absorbed this information, a warrior who fought without anger, who killed without hatred, who offered mercy from a position of power. Such beings were extremely dangerous because they were unpredictable. Sir, Science Officer Morgeth added, I've been studying human military history through their ship's database emissions. What I've found is extraordinary. Show me, Thexval ordered. The display filled with images from human history. Ancient warriors with bronze swords, medieval knights in armor, Napoleonic soldiers with muskets, World War pilots in flying machines, modern space marines with plasma rifles. This species has been constantly at war for their entire recorded history, Morgeth explained. Not occasional conflicts like most civilizations, but continuous, unending warfare. They've fought with every weapon imaginable: blades, chemicals, energy, kinetics, even nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons? Velthar asked in shock. They used planet killers in warfare? Multiple times, Morgeth confirmed. And yet they survived. More than survived, they learned. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategic principle has been tested in actual combat against other humans. Thexval stared at the images. The implications were staggering. The Vorthak had conquered 47 worlds, but they had never faced an enemy with this level of military experience. Most species they encountered had been peaceful for centuries before contact. Their weapons were theoretical. Their tactics were untested. But humans had been fighting each other for millennia. Every human military officer had access to thousands of years of tactical knowledge, all proven in blood. "Sir," the communication officer called out. "The human captain is transmitting again." "Put him through," Thexval said. "Admiral," Park's voice said, "I need to inform you that our reinforcement fleet is not just warships. We have medical vessels, supply ships, and rescue craft. If you have wounded crew members from previous battles, we can provide assistance." The offer stunned Thexval into silence. The human captain was offering to help heal Vorthak wounded, in the middle of a standoff. It was unprecedented. "Captain Park," Thexval said slowly, "why would you offer medical aid to your enemies?" The response came back immediately. "Because that's who we are, Admiral. We fight when we must, but we heal when we can. War is sometimes necessary, but suffering never is." On the human bridge, Captain Park was watching the alien response carefully. The Vorthak ships had stopped their aggressive positioning. Their weapons were still active, but no longer aimed directly at his vessel. "I think they're beginning to understand," First Officer Lee observed. "Understand what?" Park asked. "That we're not like the other species they've encountered. We're not helpless victims, but we're also not mindless aggressors. We're something new in their experience." Park nodded. These aliens had built their empire on the assumption that all species were either predators or prey. They had never encountered a species that could be both, dangerous enough to destroy them but disciplined enough to choose not to. "Sir," Communications Officer Jiwoo reported, "the alien admiral is requesting a face-to-face meeting." Park considered. This meeting with alien beings was always risky, but it might be the key to avoiding bloodshed. "Where does he want to meet?" Park asked.